Hi. Today we're going to take a look at Adrienne Rich's poem, Amends, from the Cambridge iGCSE Anthology. If you're using this video to prepare for an unseen exam, then click on the link to the poem in the description box below, annotate it, write your thesis statement and introduction, and then come back and compare it with the one that I've written at the end of the video. Good luck. On nights like this, what could be better than to gaze at the beauty of the night sky? Well, actually, according to Adrienne Rich, one or two things. She likes to see a cold night with the light of the moon that is just so. Yeah, that's pretty good. She also wants something else. A tree or two, but not just any tree, an apple tree. And the light of a star or two exploding from the bark of the apple tree. Poof! Poof! For Adrienne Rich, there's something unique about the quality of this setting that makes it perfect for amends. So whilst you work out what these literary symbols stand for, the moonlight, the apple tree, I'll sit here and feel the love of the universe. Just there. Well, maybe, just there. That's as close as I'm going to get for today. And with that, I'm ready to annotate. So, let's start. Here's Blake's temptation and fall of Eve. See the glow of that tree. When Adam and Eve eat the apple in the Garden of Eden, it brings on self-awareness. And with self-awareness comes the knowledge of our own vulnerability. And with the knowledge of our own vulnerability comes the knowledge of vulnerability of others. And with that comes the capacity to do them harm or good. Hence the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Rich's apple tree, however, is associated with making amends. It represents a healing of some of the destruction mankind has wreaked on the planet and themselves after the initial encounter with the original apple tree. The second major symbol Rich refers to in the opening verse is the moon, or more precisely, moonlight. Whereas traditionally the sun was represented by Apollo and is masculine, here he is gallivanting across the Palace of Versailles, being very, very macho. Well done, Apollo. The moonlight, with its changing phases and the ability to reflect light, was considered feminine. Here's Isis, the moon goddess to the Egyptians. Nighttime is also considered a feminine literary symbol. It's associated with dreams, the subconscious, and, of course, the moon. So Rich seems to be proposing that feminine symbols, nighttime and moonlight, can help redress or make amends for the destruction created after our initial encounter with the apple tree. Okay, so with that information, let's take a look at the poem in detail. The title Amends means to compensate for a wrongdoing. Usually the person who has committed the offence is the one to make amends, but that's not necessarily the case in this poem. It begins with an incomplete sentence. Nights like this. It has no verb and is followed by a colon and a gap. Rich is introducing the scene. After the colon comes one long sentence that defines the sort of night she is discussing. The apple bough of the opening line is probably a reference to the apple tree in Eden, but Rich alters it with a white star, then another exploding out of the bark. Light is usually associated with the force for the good, and the verb explode, well, it certainly makes it dramatic. On nights like this, the apple tree explodes with light. It's not certain where the light is coming from. I assume it's not a literal star exploding from the bark, so it's either reflecting the starlight or the moonlight that's referenced in the next line. After the second colon, the speaker describes the journey of the moonlight. It begins at the foot of the tree and ends in verse 4 on the eyelids of the tremulous sleepers. It is the moonlight, the speaker thinks, that on nights like this attempts to make amends for our destructive habits. Initially, the moonlight is personified as picking at small stones, then greater ones. It seems to travel a long way across the ocean with the surf. The verbs rises and the image laying its cheek suggests it's in harmony with the natural environment. It licks and flows and flicks, suggesting a fluidity to its movement, and the repetition of as it enhances the idea of a journey. This poem is a sequence of images. Verse 2 finishes with flicks across the tracks. We've already seen in Duffy and Baldwin, rail tracks often separate very different types of neighbourhood, and that's the case here too. Verses 3 and 4 move from natural images to images of man-made wounds to the environment. So, the final 2 verses have 5 more clauses starting with as it, as the moonlight continues its journey. At the start of verse 3, unavailing is used as an adverb. The ly is missing. It's a little bit like think different or think differently from the Apple slogan, only Adrienne Rich got there before Steve Jobs. Unavailing means without success or achieving little. The moonlight cannot heal the gash of the quarry. Gash has connotations of wound. The destructive image is how mankind's effect on the environment is portrayed in this poem. The final image of the verse has the moonlight lean across a crop dusting plain. Here's another attempt by man to manipulate the environment at the expense of the ecosystem. In the final verse, Rich uses verbs that suggest moonlight penetrates rather than flows over subjects. It soaks through cracks into the trailers. The use of enjambment suggests it's the trailers that are tremulous with sleep. However, since there's only one punctuation mark in these 2 verses, I imagine the phrase refers to the sleeper and not the trailer. The adjective tremulous is derived from tremble, and so this is not an easy or restful sleep. It's an anxious, nervous sleep. Humans are at odds with themselves as well as the environment. The final line reveals the point of the moonlight's journey. It dwells upon the eyelids of the sleepers as if to make amends. It's reminiscent of Macbeth's great sleep. Sleep that knits up the ravelled sleeve of care, the death of each day's life. Macbeth here suggests sleep itself is what brings balm to a troubled mind. Well, let's take a look at how we might turn this into an introduction with a what, a how, and a why. In her poem, Amends, Rich proposes that the feminine symbols of nighttime and moonlight can redress or make amends for mankind's destruction of self and the environment. She does this by detailing the moonlight's journey from a distant apple tree over the sea to its eventual rest on a fitful sleeper's eyelid. She is suggesting nature is redressing or making amends for the damage we have caused after our initial encounter with the biblical apple tree. Personally, I can't say that I'm that fond of this poem. I find the imagery and underlying idea utterly unconvincing. But that's just my opinion. If you have a different opinion or a different interpretation, then leave it with some love in the comments section below. And as ever, this is Think, Think, Think. No, it's not. It's Think, Think, Think. Thanking you.